Hospitals under pressure as flu outbreak spreads. Beckham sent off again as United struggle in Brazil. Drink drive figures down over the millennium. And the girl from the valleys gets the man from the Hollywood Hills.
From ITN, the ITV Nightly News with John Suchet.
Good evening. Hospitals were working at full stretch again today as official figures confirmed that the flu outbreak was still spreading. Again, there were only a handful of free intensive care beds. The flu still hasn't reached epidemic proportions, and officially there's still no crisis in the hospital service either. Here's Paul Davis.
Britain's hospitals are struggling to cope with this outbreak of influenza that's sweeping the country, and it's the elderly who are most at risk. This Belfast doctor says the strain of flu is proving a particularly nasty millennium bug that can be a killer.
Yes, people have died. Our local pathologist has just reported the increase in the number of autopsies over the Christmas season, and there is no question about it, there has been an increase in the number of deaths.
Today's figures confirm what overworked medical staff already knew. The number of flu sufferers is increasing across Britain. In the south, it's risen to 134 people out of every 100,000. In the north, it's doubled to 171. In Scotland and Wales, where different measuring criteria are used, the figures have also doubled. Only in central England have the figures fallen slightly to 141 in the last week. Largely because of flu-related illness, only 11 of a total of 1,500 intensive care beds in England were available this afternoon, though NHS administrators still deny there's a crisis.
There has been pressure on these beds. There is some pressure on their staffing figures because, of course, our staff get the flu as well sometimes. But I'm absolutely sure that everyone who will benefit from intensive care in this country at the moment is getting it.
Despite such assurances, critics point out the current flu outbreak has not yet reached crisis proportions. If the NHS is struggling to cope now, they ask, what would happen if even more of the country was taken sick? Paul Davis, ITN, Central London.
A controversial report in tomorrow's Lancet claims that breast cancer screening is a waste of time. The Danish researchers who wrote the report dismiss previous studies and claim that screening has no significant effect on saving lives. Their conclusion has outraged breast cancer groups in this country.
The screening service detects in excess of 7,000 breast cancers each year, but many of those are small cancers that of course have a potentially much better outcome for the women concerned. So I think we can be confident that the service is doing a grand job.
David Beckham, sent off in the '98 World Cup, was sent off again tonight in Manchester United's first game in the FIFA Club World Championship in Brazil. After the furore surrounding United's withdrawal from the FA Cup, it was exactly the start to the tournament United didn't want. A late equaliser from Dwight York did at least salvage a draw with the Mexican team Necaxa. Mark Austin reports from Brazil.
After all the controversy, Manchester United were under remarkable pressure to open with a win here in Brazil. But from the outset they struggled with the heat and the humidity of the Maracanã, which suited the Mexican side. And continuous early pressure from Necaxa led to this foul by Jaap Stam 13 minutes into the game. The free kick which followed piled on the tension as the Mexicans took the lead. Then came this appalling challenge from David Beckham. The referee went to pull out a card, and to Beckham's horror, it was red. It brought echoes of England's World Cup demise in 1998, Beckham's temperament again appearing to let him down on the big stage. After surviving a Necaxa penalty, United won one of their own, but Dwight York's effort was woeful. Just minutes later, though, it was York who scored the precious equaliser, which saved United's face here in Brazil. But the real disaster for Manchester United tonight is the sending off of David Beckham. He could now miss the next two matches, and in this tournament, that could make all the difference. Mark Austin, ITN, in the Maracanã Stadium, Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, the number of drivers stopped and tested positive for drink driving over Christmas and New Year was down by 10% on last year, according to police figures tonight for England and Wales. But as Eric McInnes reports, police chiefs still want a lower drink-drive limit.
This Christmas, there were fewer drivers stopped and breathalyzed. And according to the statistics now available, fewer were found to be over the limit. The overall number of drink drivers fell by 10%. The police forces believe the battle is far from being won. They want greater powers to stop motorists they suspect have been drinking. They also want the government to reduce the drink-drive limit from 80 milligrams to 50 milligrams, as it currently stands in most of continental Europe. Tonight, senior officers said despite the better news, there was no room for complacency.
We've still got a significant problem in the number of people who are prepared to drink and drive.
This is how the drink-driving figures have fallen. In 1998, 16,795 drivers in accidents were breathalyzed. Of those, 1,081 proved positive. In last year's campaign, only 14,907 drivers were tested, 972 were positive, a fall of 10%. The senior officers are heartened by the decrease in the number of those who are prepared to drink and drive. But they say there is still a significant problem with persistent offenders, and only a change in the law can help them to win that battle. Eric McInnes, ITN, Birmingham.
The first official report on the Korean Air crash at Stansted Airport has revealed that a crucial navigation instrument failed moments before the cargo jet came down. The 747's attitude direction indicator, which shows which way a plane is pointing, however dark or cloudy it is, had failed, not for the first time, bringing it down in woods moments after takeoff. Konrad Kalish, the 86-year-old who's accused of war crimes in his native Latvia, is on his way to Australia tonight. Police and immigration officials escorted him from Leicestershire to Heathrow Airport, though some people are still furious that he wasn't investigated and put on trial here. Lauren Taylor reports.
Under police escort, but leaving of his own accord, Konrad Kalish set off for Australia today. Here, the Home Secretary insisted he had no powers to detain the man who's suspected of having taken part in the massacre of Jews in Latvia during World War II.
It's a matter for the police as to whether to press criminal charges against an individual and therefore to arrest and detain that individual. But in the absence of any arrest and charge, there is no power available to the police or to a Secretary of State to detain individuals who are lawfully present in this country.
Today, Lord Janner met the Australian High Commissioner to call for further investigations. Although there was no promise of a new inquiry, the Commissioner insisted his case would be taken seriously.
The Australian Federal Police is a very effective police force, and if there is additional evidence, you can be sure that that'll be taken very seriously indeed.
It seems Kalish may have a stormy reception when he arrives back in his adopted home country of Australia. Campaigners who want him prosecuted are planning demonstrations outside federal offices in Melbourne. When Kalish finally arrives back in Australia, it won't be the end of the matter. The Latvian government now says it has started criminal proceedings against him, and if enough evidence is gathered, it will seek to extradite him from Australia. Lauren Taylor, ITN, at the Australian High Commission in London.
There was a violent confrontation between Sinn Fein supporters and Irish police in Dublin tonight after a convicted IRA killer was refused bail. Angelo Fusco is fighting an attempt to extradite him to Northern Ireland to serve his sentence. Andrew Simmons has the full story.
Scuffles outside the Irish High Court in Dublin after a demonstration over attempts to extradite the IRA convicted murderer Angelo Fusco. Sinn Fein protesters were trying to block the motorcade, taking Fusco to jail after he failed to get bail.
We love you!
Fusco had arrived earlier attempting to overturn the extradition order. The judge gave him leave to appeal but ruled that he stay in custody. It means this controversy is likely to be drawn out and potentially damaging to the peace process. Amongst the demonstrators today was Sinn Fein President Gerry Adams. Fusco had been on his way to Northern Ireland earlier this week under the extradition warrant, but the convoy was dramatically turned back before reaching the border after his lawyers managed to get a last-minute order blocking the warrant. 43-year-old Fusco was jailed in his absence in 1981 for the murder of SAS Captain Herbert Westmacott. The IRA man had escaped 2 days before his conviction. Republicans say Fusco shouldn't be jailed in Ulster because of the new political climate there generated by the peace process. Unionists disagree and say there should be no further delays to his extradition. Andrew Simmons, ITN.
The Princess Diana Memorial Fund has lost another round of its legal battle to stop an American company selling Princess Diana dolls. It could cost the fund £1 million, but as Helen Wright reports, it's fighting on.
It's unauthorised products like this doll that the Memorial Fund objects to. It's argued in the Californian courts that American manufacturers Franklin Mint have no right to use the late princess's name and image without the permission of her estate. But an appeal court has rejected that legal argument because the princess didn't live in California. But one fund official told me it's wrong the firm can still market its merchandise.
They are continuing to produce and sell products and make enormous profits from the memory of Diana, Princess of Wales, and all of those products are unauthorised.
The manufacturers say they're not doing anything wrong.
Tens of thousands of ordinary British people collect these porcelain dolls and our commemorative plate. Between them they've raised over £2.5 million for charity. These are ordinary British people remembering Diana in their own way. There's no way that they are exploiting anybody's memory.
The row over Diana memorabilia returns to the Californian courts in June when a new law governing publicity rights will be in force. It's hoped that will strengthen the fund's case, so in future only it can decide which products bear the princess's name, ensuring money raised goes to the good causes she supported. Helen Wright, ITN.
America's First Lady Hillary Clinton moved out of the White House today and into a new home in a New York suburb. The new address, a £1 million house in Chappaqua, allows her to run for the American Senate in New York. The Clintons say they'll both live there after his term as president expires in a year's time. The American film star Michael Douglas announced on the internet today that he and our own Katherine Zeta-Jones are to marry. He's 55, she's 30. But who's counting? Here's Ben McCarthy.
They couldn't come from more different backgrounds. She from South Wales, he from Hollywood with a film star father. And despite a 25-year age gap, Katherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas are now preparing to marry.
And for such a beauty. I was beautiful once.
Oh, I think you still are.
It was television's The Darling Buds of May that first made the actress a household name.
I have had the proper instructions since I was 4.
But it was her role in The Mask of Zorro which gave her international film star status. The wedding venue is unknown, but there was fevered speculation in Wales today that it would be Clyne Chapel overlooking Swansea Bay near the actress's home. Most people were delighted by the prospect of a Hollywood wedding in Wales.
She's from Swansea, why can't she be married here? It'd be lovely.
Couldn't care less. Hollywood star wedded in Swansea or the Gower, wherever they decide. Really, really nice.
This local hotel is even hoping it might be chosen for the reception, but South Wales faces stiff competition. The couple could also choose to marry in Mallorca, Los Angeles, Manhattan or Bermuda, where Michael Douglas has some of his homes. Ben McCarthy, ITN.
The headlines again. Hospitals were working at full stretch again today as official figures confirm the flu outbreak is getting worse. And David Beckham was sent off tonight in Manchester United's first game in the FIFA Club World Championship in Brazil. Tonight's financial figures. The FTSE 100 share index continued its New Year losing streak today, closing down another 88 points. In New York, the Dow was up 130 points and the pound was up another 1/4 cent against the dollar. A look now at what's in tomorrow's newspapers. The Times says a rescue package is being prepared for the Millennium Dome following poor ticket sales and missing sponsorship. It shows the Body Zone, the Dome's most popular area. The Guardian reports on Labour's Knowledge Network project, a computer-based system to help MPs respond to critics. The unusual picture shows a cancerous tumour revealed in a mammogram. The Daily Mail reports that Tesco is banning its suppliers from using fields where there have been trials of GM crops. The picture shows David Beckham's sending off. The Mirror also has the sending off. It says just 2,000 United fans bothered to turn up for the game. And The Sun says Katherine Zeta-Jones is ready to sign a prenuptial contract that she won't be claiming Michael Douglas's fortune if the couple ever divorce. That's it. Good night.
Hello, good evening. We've seen light winds today, but they'll be very strong tomorrow, as indicated here by our Met Office wind flow chart. Look at these tightly packed isobars, so very windy, especially so in the far northwest, severe gale force winds here. Low pressure in charge, and this weather front pushing rain across northern parts. As for the moment, well, it is rather chilly, tumbling temperatures, close to freezing. We see touches of frost around, mostly dry, but then soon we've rain, cloudy rain pushing into Northern Ireland as well as Western Scotland, perhaps filtering down to the north of England, falling snow on the higher ground. Those windy conditions, severe gale force winds in the far northwest, but at least elsewhere temperatures recovering. Bear in mind we could see some mist there in the south. Into tomorrow morning we see the weather front into this sort of position, sending pulses of rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland, particularly heavy in the west. Further south, dry, some brightness, best of the sunshine in sheltered areas. And as for our temperatures tomorrow, well, a high of around 10 or 11. 10 is 50 in Fahrenheit, but totally irrelevant when you bear in mind these very windy conditions. And once again, a reminder, we could well see gale force winds there for the far northwest. And that's about the sum of it on the weather front.
Power Gen. Power, whatever the weather.